Alright, in this lesson we're going to be solving absolute value equations. The thing is absolutely essential to remember is that when you're solving an absolute value equation, you most of the time will have two solutions. Okay, the reason for this is because absolute value means the distance from zero on a number line. So if we had a point that is 4 units away from zero on the number line, it could be either at positive 4 because that's 4 away from zero, or it could be at negative 4 because that's 4 away from zero. Okay, so you will always have a positive and a negative option when you do the absolute value. A lot of times when we evaluate absolute value, what that means, if you have a number in absolute values, is you make it positive if it's not. If it's already positive, you leave it positive. So when you're setting up an absolute value equation, there are a clear set of steps to follow. The first is to isolate the absolute value, which is done here in this problem. We already have only an absolute value on one side, nothing hanging around on the outside. The second step is to set up two equations, one positive and one negative. What I mean by that is you set up equations, you go ahead and remove the absolute value and set it equal as a positive number on this side. And you set up a second equation where it's equal to the negative of that number. So I have two problems to solve here. It will give me two solutions to the problem. Okay, so here I just have to divide both sides by 4, and I get the solution x equals 3. On this other equation, again, just have to divide both sides by 4, and I get the solution x equals negative 3. So I have two solutions, 3 and negative 3. Sometimes you'll see it written as plus or minus 3. That's just to save space. Notice if I checked those, okay, if I checked 3, 4 times 3 is 12, and the absolute value of 12 is 12. If it's positive, you leave it positive. If I tried negative 3, 4 times negative 3 is negative 12, but the absolute value, what it does is makes negatives positive, so I get to 12 equals 12. So both check. My solutions are 3 and negative 3. Here's another example. Again, first step is to isolate the absolute value so I can't have it divided by 7. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply both sides by 7 so the absolute value is completely alone. Next step, set up two equations, one positive and one negative. So I have p plus 2. Notice I took the absolute values off for this, equals 28, and p plus 2 equals negative 28. Then I solve each of those. So subtract 2 from both sides. I would get p equals 26 for my first solution. Subtract 2 from both sides over here, and I get p equals negative 30 for my second solution. Both solutions to the problem, p equals 26 and p equals negative 30. Right, here's another example. Again, same set of steps. Isolate the absolute value. So I have this 3 on the outside. I'm going to divide both sides by 3 first. And I get the absolute value of x minus 4 is equal to 6. Next step, set up two equations, one positive and one negative. So x minus 4 equals 6. X minus 4 equals negative 6. And we solve. Add 4 to both sides, and I get x 10. Add 4 to both sides of this one, and I get x is negative 2. So there are my two solutions. X is 10, x is negative 2. Again, you can pause this at any time. Pause the lesson if you need to take notes or want to try it on your own. Here is our last absolute value example. Okay, so follow the steps. First thing, isolate the absolute value. In this case, I would have to add 4 first before I begin this problem, so that I have only the absolute value on one side. Step 2, set up both equations, one positive and one negative. So I have 6b is a positive 24, and 6b is negative 24, and I solve them both. I get B is positive 4. And B is negative 4. Again, you may see it written as B equals plus or minus 4. But those are the two solutions to this absolute value problem. So remember, the absolute values, isolate the absolute value, get it all alone, set up two equations, one positive and one negative, solve them both, and you'll have your solution.